At exactly 3 a.m., security guard Marcus froze in his tracks. The light in Diana's old bedroom was on, but Diana had been dead for 3 weeks. He watched through the security camera as a shadow moved across the window. His hands trembled as he reached for his radio. Everyone knew that room had been locked since the funeral. No one had the key except the family lawyer. But someone, or something, was walking inside right now. Marcus had worked at the Wellington estate for 15 years and never believed in ghosts. Tonight, that was about to change. What he discovered in that room would shake the entire town and reveal a truth far more terrifying than any ghost story. Marcus Bennett had been working the night shift at Wellington Estate for 15 years, and he thought he had seen everything. The massive mansion sat on 12 acres of perfectly manicured gardens, and his job was simple. Walk the grounds every 2 hours, check the security cameras, make sure nothing disturbed the peace of one of the wealthiest families in the county. Diana Wellington had been the heart of this estate. Everyone in town knew her. She volunteered at the hospital, donated to every charity, and always had a kind word for the staff. When she died 3 weeks ago in a car accident, the whole community mourned. She was only 32 years old, with her whole life ahead of her. The funeral had been enormous. Over 500 people attended. Marcus had worked extra hours that week, managing the crowds and the parking. He remembered watching Diana's husband, Robert, standing by the grave with their 7-year-old daughter, Emma. The man looked broken, like someone had ripped out his soul. After the funeral, Robert locked Diana's bedroom and told the staff that no one was to enter. He said he needed time before he could face sorting through her things. Everyone understood. Grief worked differently for different people. Robert needed space to process his loss. Tonight started like any other night. Marcus began his shift at 11 p.m., made his first round at midnight, and settled into the security office to watch the monitors. The estate had 24 cameras covering every angle of the property. Marcus knew every inch of those screens. At 2:45 a.m., he was drinking his third cup of coffee and reading a mystery novel when something caught his eye. He looked up at the monitor showing the east wing of the mansion where the family bedrooms were located. His coffee cup froze halfway to his lips. Diana's bedroom window was glowing with light. Marcus blinked hard, thinking his tired eyes were playing tricks on him. But no, the light was definitely on. A warm yellow glow spilled from behind the curtains. His heart began to race. He leaned closer to the screen, his face inches from the monitor. Then he saw it. A shadow moved across the window. Someone was inside that room. His first thought was burglars. But how did they get past the security system? Every door and window had sensors. Nothing had triggered an alarm. He checked the security panel. All green lights. No breaches detected. Marcus grabbed his radio with shaking hands. He should call Robert immediately. But what would he say? Your dead wife's room has a light on? That sounded insane. Maybe Robert himself was in there, finally ready to face his grief. But Marcus checked the camera covering Robert's bedroom. The man was clearly asleep in his bed, not moving. He switched back to Diana's window. The shadow moved again, this time more clearly. It looked like someone walking slowly across the room, moving from the closet area toward the bed. Marcus felt ice water run through his veins. For 15 years, he had been a practical man. He did not believe in ghosts or supernatural nonsense. Everything had a logical explanation. But watching that shadow move behind Diana's curtains at 3 a.m., 3 weeks after her death, in a locked room that no one could access, Marcus felt his certainty crumbling. He made a decision. He would go check it out himself before waking the whole house. Maybe there was a simple explanation. Maybe the housekeeper had gone in earlier and forgot to turn off the light. Maybe the shadow was just a tree branch moving in the wind, creating an illusion through the curtains. Marcus stood up, grabbed his flashlight, and clipped his radio to his belt. His hands were sweating as he left the security office and walked through the quiet halls of the mansion. Every sound seemed amplified in the darkness. The old house creaked and settled around him. His footsteps echoed on the marble floors. The east wing felt colder than usual. Marcus had never been a superstitious man, but something about the air felt different tonight, heavy, waiting. He reached Diana's bedroom door and stopped. His hand hovered over the doorknob. His breath came in short, quick bursts. The door was locked, just as it should be. But light definitely glowed from underneath the doorframe. He could see it clearly now, a thin line of yellow light against the dark hallway floor. Marcus pressed his ear against the door and listened. Footsteps. Soft footsteps, moving inside the room. His heart hammered in his chest. Someone was definitely in there. But how? He had the only master key besides Robert and the family lawyer. He reached for his radio to call Robert. But then he heard something that made his blood turn to ice. Humming, a woman's voice, humming a soft melody. Marcus recognized that tune. It was the lullaby Diana used to sing to Emma. He had heard it dozens of times over the years when he did his evening rounds. Diana would be putting Emma to bed, and her gentle voice would drift through the house, singing that sweet, simple melody. But Diana was dead. Buried in the town cemetery, gone. So who was humming her song? Marcus's hand trembled as he pulled out his master key. Every instinct screamed at him to run, to wake Robert, to call the police. But he had to know. After 15 years of protecting this family, he had to know what was happening in that room. He slid the key into the lock. The metal scraped against metal, sounding impossibly loud in the silent hallway. He turned the key slowly, hearing each pin in the lock click into place. The humming continued inside, unchanged, as if whoever was in there had not heard him at all. Marcus turned the doorknob and pushed. The door swung open, and warm light spilled into the hallway. Marcus stepped inside, his flashlight raised like a weapon, his eyes scanning the room for the intruder. What he saw made him freeze in place, his mind refusing to process the scene before him. The room looked exactly as Diana had left it. The bed was made with its rose-patterned quilt. Her vanity table held her perfume bottles and jewelry box. Her reading glasses sat on the nightstand next to a bookmark sticking out of a novel. Everything was perfect, untouched, exactly as it had been the day she died. But someone had been here. The closet door stood open. Clothes had been pulled out and laid on the bed. Diana's favorite blue dress, the one she wore to every special occasion, her pearl necklace, the gift from her grandmother, her wedding photo album, open to a page showing her and Robert on their honeymoon. Marcus walked deeper into the room, his shoes silent on the plush carpet. The humming had stopped the moment he opened the door. Now the room was silent except for his own breathing. He checked behind the door and the closet under the bed. Nothing. No one. The window was locked from the inside. The bathroom door was open, showing an empty space. There was nowhere for anyone to hide, yet someone had been here. The evidence was everywhere. The clothes, the jewelry, the album. Someone had been going through Diana's things. Then Marcus noticed something that made his skin crawl. On Diana's vanity table, next to her perfume bottles, was a fresh cup of tea. Still steaming, he reached out and touched the cup. Hot. Recently made. He lifted it and smelled. Chamomile, Diana's favorite before bed. Who had made this tea? Marcus spun around, his eyes wild, searching every corner of the room again. His rational mind fought against the evidence before him. Ghosts were not real. There had to be an explanation. But what explanation could possibly fit these facts? The radio on his belt crackled to life, making him jump so hard he nearly dropped his flashlight. Robert's voice came through, groggy with sleep, but edged with panic. Marcus. Marcus, are you there? I need you to come to my room right now. Something has happened. Marcus pressed the talk button with shaking fingers. Sir, I am actually in Diana's bedroom right now. The light was on, and I found what? Robert's voice went sharp. That is impossible. That door has been locked since the funeral. No one has been in there. I know, sir, but someone was definitely here. There are things moved around, and there is a fresh cup of tea. And I heard asterisk. Get out of that room right now, Robert interrupted, his voice suddenly cold and hard. Do not touch anything else. I am coming there immediately. The radio went dead. Marcus stood alone in Diana's bedroom, surrounded by her things, trying to make sense of what he had witnessed. His eyes kept returning to that cup of tea, the steam still rising from it in delicate curls. Someone had been here. Someone had been going through a dead woman's belongings at 3 a.m. Someone had been humming her lullaby, but who? And more importantly, how did they get in and out of a locked room without triggering a single alarm? Marcus heard rapid footsteps in the hallway. Robert burst through the door, wearing his bathrobe, his hair wild from sleep. His eyes immediately went to the clothes on the bed, the open album, the steaming tea. His face went pale, then flushed red with anger. "Who did this?" he demanded, looking at Marcus. "Who has been in here?" "I do not know, sir. I saw the light on from the security office and came to investigate. The door was locked. I used my master key to get in. When I entered, all of this was already here, arranged like this. I heard humming before I opened the door, but when I came inside, the room was empty." Robert walked slowly to the vanity and picked up the teacup. His hands were shaking. He brought it to his nose and smelled it, then set it down carefully as if it might explode. When he looked at Marcus, there were tears in his eyes. "This is exactly how Diana would arrange her outfit for the next day," Robert whispered. "The dress, the necklace, laid out perfectly. She did it every single night before bed. And this tea chamomile, she drank it every evening at exactly 9 p.m. "How could someone check the security footage?" Robert interrupted. "Every camera, every angle. I want to know who was in this house tonight. I want to know how they got into this room." Marcus nodded and turned to leave, but Robert called him back. "Marcus, wait. Did you see anyone? Anything at all?" Marcus hesitated. Should he mention the shadow on the camera? The humming. It all sounded so impossible in the light of the room, standing next to Robert's grief-stricken face. But he was a security guard. His job was to report what he observed, no matter how strange. "I saw a shadow moving in the window from the camera, and I heard humming when I stood outside the door. A woman's voice, humming the lullaby Mrs. Wellington used to sing to Emma." Robert's face went completely white. He grabbed the edge of the vanity table to steady himself. For a long moment, he said nothing, just stared at that cup of steaming tea as if it held all the answers to the universe. Finally he spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. "Go check the footage. Every second from midnight until now. I need to know what is happening in my house." Marcus left quickly, relieved to escape the strange atmosphere of that bedroom. As he walked back to the security office, his mind raced with possibilities. Someone was playing a cruel trick on Robert. It had to be. But who would do such a thing? And how did they bypass all the security? Back in his office, Marcus sat down at the monitors and began reviewing the footage. He started with the exterior cameras, checking every possible entry point to the house. Nothing. No movement, no breaches, no shadows. All the doors and windows remained secure throughout the night. He moved to the interior cameras, focusing on the hallways leading to Diana's room. His eyes strained as he watched the timestamps tick by. Midnight, 1 a.m., 2 a.m. Nothing. The hallways remained empty and still. Then, at exactly 2:47 a.m., something happened that made Marcus's heart stop. On the camera covering the east wing hallway right outside Diana's bedroom, there was a flicker. Just for a second, the image seemed to distort, like static on an old television. When the image cleared, Diana's bedroom door, which had been closed, was now standing slightly open. A sliver of light showed from inside. Marcus rewound and watched it again. The flicker, the distortion, the door suddenly open. It happened in less than a second. There was no one in the hallway. No person opened that door. It just opened. He switched to different cameras, looking for any technical glitches or explanations. But every other camera was functioning perfectly. Only the east wing camera had that brief moment of static, and only at the exact moment Diana's door opened. With growing dread, Marcus realized he had no footage of anyone entering or leaving that room. But someone had been there. The evidence was undeniable. The moved clothes, the photo album, the tea. Someone or something had been in Diana's bedroom tonight. Robert stood in Marcus's security office, watching the footage over and over again. The flicker, the door opening, the empty hallway. His jaw was clenched so tight that Marcus could see the muscles working beneath his skin. After the seventh replay, Robert slammed his fist on the desk, making Marcus jump. "This is impossible," Robert said through gritted teeth. "Doors do not just open themselves. Someone is doing this. Someone is in my house, terrorizing my family, and I want to know who." Marcus remained silent. What could he say? He had checked every camera, every angle. There was no rational explanation for what they were seeing. But Robert was right about one thing. Someone had been in that room, and they needed to find out who. "Sir, maybe we should call the police," Marcus suggested carefully. "No," Robert said immediately. "No police. Can you imagine what would happen if this got out? The press would have a field day. Diana's death was already all over the news. If people hear about strange occurrences in her bedroom, they will turn this into some kind of ghost story. I will not have my wife's memory turned into entertainment for gossip columns." Marcus understood, but he also felt increasingly uneasy. Whatever was happening in this house, it was beyond his security training. This was not a simple break-in or a security breach. This was something else entirely. "What do you want me to do, sir?" Robert paced the small office, his mind clearly racing. "I want you to set up a camera inside Diana's bedroom. Hide it where no one can see it. If someone comes back, we will have proof. We will see exactly who is doing this." "But sir, what if it happens again tonight?" "What if then we will catch them?" Robert interrupted. "Tonight, I want you to stay in the hallway outside Diana's room. Keep watch. Do not let anyone near that door. I do not care if you have to stay awake all night. Can you do that?" Marcus nodded. "Yes, sir. I can do that. Could set up the camera first thing in the morning. Make sure no one sees you do it. Not the housekeeper, not the gardener, no one. This stays between us. Understood?" "Understood." Robert left, and Marcus sat alone with his thoughts in the security monitors. Dawn was beginning to break outside, painting the sky in shades of pink and orange. In a few hours, the staff would arrive, and the house would come alive with the normal activities of the day. But nothing felt normal anymore. The next morning, while Robert took Emma to school, Marcus installed a small camera in Diana's bedroom. He hid it inside a decorative clock on the bookshelf, angling it to cover the entire room. The camera was motion-activated and would record directly to a hidden hard drive. If anyone entered that room, Marcus would have video proof. He locked the door behind him and returned to his duties, trying to maintain the appearance of a normal day. The housekeeper, Mrs. Chen, noticed his tired eyes and offered him coffee. The gardener, old Mr. Peterson, waved to him from the rose garden. Everything seemed peaceful and ordinary. But Marcus could not shake the feeling that something was very wrong in the Wellington house. That evening, as Marcus prepared for his night shift, Robert called him into his study. Emma was already in bed, and the house was quiet. Robert poured 2 glasses of whiskey and handed one to Marcus. "I need to tell you something," Robert said, settling into his leather chair. "Something I have not told anyone else." Marcus sat down, cradling the glass in his hands. He rarely drank on duty, but tonight felt like an exception. 3 days before Diana died, Robert began, his voice low and strained. "She told me she had been feeling watched. She said she kept seeing shadows in the house, movements in her peripheral vision. I told her she was stressed, working too hard. I suggested she take a vacation, see a doctor maybe. I did not take her seriously." Marcus leaned forward. "Did she say anything else?" "She said she felt like someone was in the house, someone who should not be there. She started locking her bedroom door at night, which she had never done before. She became paranoid about the security system, asking me constantly if all the alarms were working. Did you notice anything unusual during that time?" Robert shook his head. "Nothing. Everything seemed fine. I thought she was just anxious. She had been working on a big charity project, organizing a fundraiser for the children's hospital. I assumed the stress was getting to her. But now, after what happened last night, I keep wondering. What if she was right? What if someone really was in the house?" Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. "Sir, are you suggesting that someone might have been stalking Mrs. Wellington before she died?" "I do not know what I'm suggesting," Robert said. draining his whiskey in one gulp. "All I know is that my wife felt threatened in her own home, and 3 days later, she died in a car accident that the police said was caused by brake failure. They ruled it accidental. The car was old, and brakes fail sometimes. But Diana had just had that car serviced 2 weeks before she died. The mechanic said everything was perfect. The implications hung heavy in the air between them." Marcus set down his untouched whiskey, his hands suddenly unsteady. "Sir, are you saying you think someone tampered with her car?" "I am saying I do not know what to think anymore," Robert said quietly. "But I want answers. That is why we need to find out who was in her room last night. Maybe it is just someone playing a sick prank. Maybe it is something else. But I need to know." Marcus nodded solemnly. "I will watch her room tonight. If anyone comes near it, I will catch them." As midnight approached, Marcus positioned himself in a chair at the end of the east wing hallway. With a direct view of Diana's bedroom door, he had a thermos of coffee, his flashlight, and a growing sense of dread. The house settled into its nighttime quiet, and Marcus began his vigil. Hours passed slowly. Marcus checked his watch constantly, watching the minutes tick by. 1 a.m., 2 a.m. Nothing happened. The hallway remained empty and silent. He began to think that maybe the previous night had been a one-time occurrence. Maybe whoever had been there would not return. Then, at 2:45 a.m., the temperature in the hallway dropped dramatically. Marcus could see his breath in the air, white puffs that dissipated slowly. The hair on the back of his neck stood up. Something was wrong. He stood up from his chair, gripping his flashlight tightly. The cold intensified, biting through his uniform jacket. And then he heard it again. The humming. That same soft melody, Diana's lullaby, coming from inside her locked bedroom. Marcus walked slowly toward the door, his heart pounding so hard he thought it might burst from his chest. The humming grew louder as he approached. It was definitely a woman's voice, gentle and melodic, singing that familiar tune. He pressed his ear against the door, listening. The humming continued, moving around the room. He could hear soft footsteps, the rustle of fabric, the creak of floorboards. Someone was definitely inside. Marcus grabbed the door handle and tried to turn it. Locked, just as it should be. But the sounds continued inside, unbothered by his presence. He fumbled for his master key, his hands shaking from cold and fear. The key slipped from his fingers and clattered to the floor. The humming stopped instantly. Marcus bent down to grab his key, and when he stood up, he heard something that turned his blood to ice. A voice, barely a whisper, coming from the other side of the door. Marcus. His name. Someone on the other side of that door had just said his name. "Who is there?" He called out, trying to keep his voice steady. "Identify yourself immediately." Silence. Then softer this time, almost sad. "Marcus, please. You need to tell Robert." "Tell him what?" "Who are you?" "Tell him to look in my diary. In the blue book. Under the loose floorboard in the closet. Tell him before it is too late. Please, Marcus. He is in danger." Marcus's hand trembled as he inserted the key into the lock. He had to see who was on the other side of that door. He had to know if he was losing his mind or if something truly impossible was happening in the Wellington house. He turned the key and threw the door open, his flashlight beam cutting through the darkness. The bedroom was empty. Completely empty. No one stood by the door. No one was in the closet or under the bed. The room was exactly as it had been left the night before, untouched and still. But on the vanity table, next to yesterday's cold cup of tea, was a new cup. Fresh and steaming. Chamomile again. And next to it, lying open, was a photograph. Marcus walked over slowly, his legs feeling like they might give out at any moment. He picked up the photograph and examined it in the beam of his flashlight. It was a picture of Diana and Robert on their wedding day, smiling at the camera, young and happy and full of hope. But someone had drawn something on the photograph in red ink. A circle around a woman standing in the background of the picture. A woman Marcus had never noticed before. A woman who was staring directly at Diana with an expression that could only be described as hatred. Marcus pulled out his radio, his hands shaking so badly he could barely press the button. "Sir, you need to come to Diana's room immediately. I have found something. Something important." Within minutes, Robert was there, staring at the photograph in disbelief. He took it from Marcus and held it close, examining the circled woman. "That is Victoria," he said quietly, "Diana's sister." Marcus blinked in confusion. "I did not know Mrs. Wellington had a sister." "They were estranged," Robert explained, his voice hollow. They had not spoken in years. Not since Victoria accused Diana of stealing her inheritance when their mother died. It was nonsense. Diana never took anything that was not rightfully hers. But Victoria became obsessed with the idea. She sent threatening letters, showed up at the house making scenes. Eventually, we had to get a restraining order. "When was the last time you saw her?" Robert thought for a moment, his brow furrowed. "At the funeral? She came, despite the restraining order. She stood at the back, watching everything. I should have had security remove her, but I thought, what is the harm? Her sister is dead. Let her grieve. But now I am wondering if that was a mistake." Marcus felt the pieces starting to come together. "Sir, whoever was in this room told me to tell you something. They said to look in Diana's diary, the blue book. Under a loose floorboard in her closet, they said you are in danger." Robert's face went pale. Without a word, he rushed to Diana's closet and dropped to his knees, running his hands over the floorboards. He found the loose one near the back corner and pried it up. Underneath was a small space, and nestled inside was a blue leather-bound diary. Robert pulled it out and flipped through the pages, his eyes scanning Diana's handwriting frantically. Marcus watched as Robert's expression changed from confusion to shock to absolute horror. "Oh God," Robert whispered. "Oh God," Diana knew. She knew everything. "Knew what, sir?" Robert looked up at Marcus, tears streaming down his face. Victoria was not just angry about the inheritance. She blamed Diana for our mother-in-law's death. She convinced herself that Diana poisoned her to get the money. It is insane, but Diana documented everything in here. Victoria's threats, her break-ins to the house, her plan to make Diana pay, and on the last page, written 2 days before Diana died, it says Victoria knows about the breaks. She mentioned my car specifically. Said I should be careful driving. I think she is going to hurt me. If something happens to me, please check the car. Check everything. Do not let her near Emma." The room felt like it was spinning. Marcus grabbed the edge of the vanity to steady himself. "Sir, we need to call the police right now. If Victoria tampered with Mrs. Wellington's breaks, if she murdered her sister—" Then she is not finished," Robert interrupted. "Diana said not to let her near Emma. Marcus, Victoria knows this house. She visited hundreds of times before the restraining order. She would know how to get in without triggering alarms. She could still have a key." Marcus's blood ran cold. "Sir, where is Emma?" Robert's eyes went wide with terror. They both bolted from the room, running down the hallway toward Emma's bedroom. Robert threw open the door, and they both stopped dead in their tracks. Emma's bed was empty. The covers were thrown back, and the window was open, curtains billowing in the night breeze. On the pillow, written in red lipstick, was a message. "She is mine now." Just like the inheritance should have been. Robert's scream echoed through the mansion. He ran to Emma's window, looking out into the dark gardens below. Marcus grabbed his radio and immediately called the police, his training finally kicking in despite the shock coursing through his system. This was no longer a ghost story or a mystery. This was a kidnapping in progress. 911, my name is Marcus Bennett. I am the security guard at Wellington Estate on Oakmont Drive. A 7-year-old girl has been taken from her bedroom. The suspect is Victoria Ashford, the victim's aunt. She has a restraining order against her. We need units here immediately." Within seconds, Marcus could hear sirens in the distance. Robert was frantic, pacing the room, looking for any clue about where Victoria might have taken Emma. He picked up the lipstick-written note, his hands trembling with rage and fear. "She planned this," Robert said, his voice breaking. "She murdered Diana, and now she is taking Emma. I should have seen this coming. Diana tried to warn me. She tried to tell me Victoria was dangerous, and I did not take it seriously enough." Marcus moved to the window, examining the frame. There were scratch marks around the lock, fresh ones. She picked the lock, Marcus said. She knew exactly which window to target. The one blind spot in our camera coverage. How long has she been planning this? Robert demanded, more to himself than to Marcus. How long has she been watching us, waiting for her chance? Police cars flooded the driveway, their lights painting the mansion in flashes of red and blue. Detective Sarah Chin was the first through the door, sharp-eyed woman in her 40s who had worked hundreds of cases in her career. She took one look at Emma's empty bed and immediately began issuing orders to her team. I need a description of the child and the suspect. I need every exit from this property locked down. I need the K9 unit here now. And someone get me the security footage. Marcus led Detective Chen to his office, pulling up every camera angle from the past hour. They watched as a figure, dressed in dark clothing, approached the east side of the mansion at 2:30 a.m. The person moved carefully, staying in shadows, clearly aware of where the cameras were positioned. They disappeared from view near Emma's window, right in that blind spot Marcus had identified. Asterisk, she knows this property, Detective Chen said, her eyes narrowing. She has been here before. Many times, Robert confirmed, entering the office. Before the restraining order, Victoria was a regular visitor. She had dinner here weekly. She knew every room, every camera, every security measure. I gave her a tour of our entire security system once, years ago. I thought I was being friendly. I never imagined she would use that knowledge against us. Detective Chen pulled out her phone and made several calls, mobilizing additional resources. We have issued an Amber Alert. Every officer in the state will be looking for Victoria Ashford and Emma Wellington. Now, I need you to tell me everything about Victoria. Where would she go? Does she have other properties? Friends who might hide her? Robert ran his hands through his hair, trying to think clearly despite his panic. She has a cabin, about 40 miles north, near Pine Lake. She inherited it from an uncle. Diana and I visited it once, years ago, before the falling out. It is remote, surrounded by woods. If she wants to hide, that is where she would go. Give me the exact address, Detective Chen demanded, already typing into her radio. I am sending units there now. As Robert gave the address, Marcus remembered something. Detective, there is more you need to know. We have evidence that Victoria may have tampered with Diana Wellington's car 3 weeks ago. Diana kept a diary documenting Victoria's threats, handed over the blue leather book. Detective Chen's expression darkened as she flipped through the pages. This changes everything. We are not just looking at kidnapping. We are looking at murder. This woman is far more dangerous than we thought. More police arrived, setting up a command center in the Wellington dining room. Phones rang constantly. Officers spread maps across the table, marking possible routes Victoria might take. Robert sat in the corner, his head in his hands, while Marcus kept reviewing the security footage, looking for anything they might have missed. Then Marcus noticed something odd. He rewound the footage to 2:15 a.m., 15 minutes before Victoria appeared on camera. There was a brief flicker on one of the exterior cameras, similar to the flicker he had seen the night before in the East Wing hallway. He called Detective Chen over. Look at this. The camera glitches right here, just for a second. I thought it might be a technical issue, but now I am not sure. Detective Chen watched carefully. Can you enhance that section? Marcus zoomed in on the frame just before the glitch. There, barely visible in the darkness, was a figure standing near the camera. They were holding something small that reflected light. A moment later, the camera flickered, and the figure was gone. She used some kind of jamming device, Marcus said. She temporarily disabled the camera so she could approach without being seen. That is sophisticated. That is planned. This woman is organized and determined, Detective Chen said grimly. She has been planning this for weeks, maybe months. The question is, what does she want? Is this about revenge? The inheritance? Or something else? Robert looked up suddenly. The life insurance. Oh God, the life insurance. Everyone in the room turned to look at him. What about the life insurance? Detective Chen asked. When Diana's mother died, She left everything to Diana because she knew Victoria had gambling problems. She was trying to protect the family money. Victoria was furious, but there was nothing she could do. The will was ironclad. But Diana's life insurance policy is different. If Diana dies, the money goes to Emma in a trust. And if something happens to Emma before she turns 18, the money goes to the next living relative. That would be Victoria. The room went silent as the implications sank in. She is not just taking Emma out of grief or revenge, Marcus said slowly. She is planning to kill her. Detective Chen's jaw clenched. How much money are we talking about? $5 million, Robert said quietly. Plus Diana's inheritance, which was another $8 million. If Emma dies, Victoria gets everything. 13 million reasons to murder her own family. Detective Chen grabbed her radio. All units, be advised. Suspect is considered armed and extremely dangerous. We are now treating this as a potential murder attempt. Approach with extreme caution. This woman has already killed once, and she will not hesitate to kill again. The cabin at Pine Lake was 40 miles away, but the police cars made the trip in 25 minutes, sirens wailing through the night. Robert rode with Detective Chen, while Marcus stayed at the mansion monitoring the security feeds and coordinating with the command center. A helicopter circled overhead, its spotlight sweeping the woods around the cabin. When the police surrounded the small wooden structure, it appeared dark and abandoned. But there was a car parked behind it, hidden under branches. Victoria's car. Detective Chen signaled her team, and they moved in carefully, weapons drawn, night vision goggles illuminating the darkness. The front door was locked. They broke it down with a battering ram. Inside, the cabin was dusty and cold, clearly unused for months. But there were fresh footprints in the dust, leading to the back bedroom. The door was closed. Detective Chen approached slowly, her weapon raised. She could hear sounds from inside, crying, a child crying. Emma, Victoria Ashford, this is the police. We have the building surrounded. Release the child and come out with your hands up. Silence. Then Victoria's voice, high-pitched and manic. She is mine. Diana stole everything from me. My mother's love, my inheritance, my life. But Emma is mine now. I am her mother. I am taking care of her. Victoria, let us help you, Detective Chen called through the door. We know you have been hurting. We know you feel like your family abandoned you. But Emma is innocent. She is just a child. Let her go, and we can talk about this. Talk. Victoria's laugh was bitter and broken. I tried talking. For years I tried, but no one listened. Diana always got everything. The good grades, the perfect marriage, the beautiful child, the money. What did I get? Nothing. I got blamed for my gambling. I got cut out of the will. I got a restraining order against me like I was some kind of criminal. Well, now they will finally understand. Now they will see what it is like to lose everything. Robert, standing behind Detective Chen, could not hold back anymore. Victoria, please. Emma is your niece. She loves you. She has drawings you made together on her bedroom wall. She talks about Aunt Victoria all the time. Please do not hurt her. She is all I have left. There was a long pause. Then Victoria spoke again, and her voice had changed. It was softer now, more uncertain. Emma talks about me. All the time, Robert said, tears streaming down his face. She asks when she can see you again. She does not understand why you stopped visiting. She misses you, Victoria. And I know deep down you miss her too. The real you, not this person that grief has turned you into. Diana would not want this. Despite everything, she still loved you. She told me once that she hoped someday you two could fix things. She wanted Emma to know her aunt. A silence. Then the sound of a lock clicking. The door opened slowly. Victoria stood there, holding Emma's hand. Victoria looked nothing like the elegant woman from the wedding photo. Her hair was wild, her eyes red from crying, her clothes disheveled. But Emma was unharmed, just frightened and confused. I did not mean for any of this to happen, Victoria said, her voice hollow. I just wanted what was mine. I just wanted to matter to someone. Detective Chen moved forward carefully, and two officers gently took Emma from Victoria's grasp. The little girl ran to her father, who scooped her up and held her tight, sobbing into her hair. Victoria did not resist, as the officers handcuffed her. She looked almost relieved that it was over. As they led Victoria to the police car, she turned back to Robert. I did kill her, you know. The brakes. It was easier than I thought. I am sorry. I am so sorry. The confession hung in the night air, final and devastating. Robert held Emma close, whispering to her that she was safe now, that everything would be okay. But nothing would truly be okay again. Diana was gone, murdered by her own sister. The family was shattered beyond repair, all for money, for jealousy, for a twisted sense of justice that made sense only in Victoria's broken mind. Back at the mansion, as dawn broke over the estate, Marcus sat in the security office, exhausted and numb. He thought about the past 2 nights, the mysterious occurrences in Diana's room, the humming, the tea, the photograph, the message that led them to the diary. Had it really been Diana, somehow reaching out from beyond death to protect her family? Or had it been his subconscious picking up on clues he did not consciously recognize? He would never know for certain. But as he looked at the security monitor showing Diana's bedroom, he could have sworn he saw a brief flicker of light, like a candle being blown out. And in that moment, he chose to believe. He chose to believe that Diana had been there, fighting to save her daughter even in death, guiding them to the truth before it was too late. The bedroom light faded, and the room returned to darkness. The mystery of the Midnight Guard's discovery would remain, in some ways, forever unsolved. 3 months passed after that terrible night at Pine Lake. Victoria Ashford was held without bail, facing charges of first-degree murder for Diana's death and attempted kidnapping of Emma. The district attorney was building an airtight case, using Diana's diary, the forensic evidence from the car's brake line, and Victoria's own confession. But for Robert and Emma, life moved forward in a strange, suspended state. Emma had nightmares about the night her aunt took her from her bedroom. Robert barely slept, checking on his daughter multiple times each night, unable to shake the fear that something else might go wrong. The mansion that had once felt like a home now felt like a prison of memories. Marcus continued working as the security guard. He had been through extensive debriefing with the police about his role in solving the case. Detective Chen had commended him for his vigilance and his quick thinking. But Marcus could not shake the memory of those 2 nights, the supernatural elements that defied logical explanation. The humming, the tea, the voice that spoke his name. He told the police about the strange occurrences. But his report was filed away as stress-induced hallucinations during a high-pressure situation. Only Marcus knew the truth of what he had experienced. One evening in early spring, Robert called Marcus into his study. It was the first time they had spoken privately since Emma's rescue. Robert looked older now, the stress of the past months etched into the lines of his face. But there was also something else in his expression, a kind of peace that had not been there before. I wanted to thank you properly, Robert said, gesturing for Marcus to sit. You saved Emma's life. If you had not investigated Diana's room that night, if you had not found the diary, Victoria would have succeeded in her plan. I owe you everything. I was just doing my job, sir, Marcus replied, uncomfortable with the praise. Oh, no, Robert said firmly. You went beyond your job. You trusted your instincts, even when what you were experiencing seemed impossible. You did not dismiss the signs. You investigated thoroughly. That is what made the difference. Robert opened a drawer in his desk and pulled out a small box. He handed it to Marcus. Inside was a gold watch, engraved with a simple message. For Marcus Bennett, who watched over us when we needed it most. With gratitude, Robert and Emma Wellington. Marcus felt his throat tighten with emotion. Sir, I cannot accept this. It is too much. Please, Robert insisted. It belonged to Diana's father. She would want you to have it. You protected her family when she could not. Marcus accepted the watch with trembling hands, overcome with the significance of the gift. For a moment, the 2 men sat in silence, united by their shared trauma and their survival. Can I ask you something? Robert finally said. Off the record, just between us. Do you really think it was Diana? Those 2 nights, the things you experienced in her room? Do you think she was trying to warn us? Marcus considered his answer carefully. He had spent months thinking about this question, wrestling with his own beliefs and experiences. Finally, he decided to tell the complete truth. I have been a practical man my entire life, sir. I do not believe in ghosts or the supernatural. I have always thought there was a rational explanation for everything. But those 2 nights, I experienced things I cannot explain. The humming was real. The voice that spoke my name was real. The tea that appeared from nowhere was real. I checked every possibility, every logical explanation, and none of them fit. Marcus paused, gathering his thoughts. I think Diana knew she was in danger. I think in those final days before she died, she was trying to document everything. To leave a trail that would protect her family if the worst happened. And somehow, when Victoria came back to finish what she started, Diana found a way to guide us to that diary. Whether it was her spirit or some energy she left behind, or my own subconscious picking up on clues I did not recognize, I cannot say for certain. But I choose to believe she was there, protecting Emma one last time. Robert's eyes filled with tears. I believe that too. In fact, I know it. Because there is something I have not told anyone else. Something that happened to me that same night. Marcus leaned forward, intrigued. What happened? When you called me on the radio, telling me about Diana's room, I was not asleep. I had woken up about 15 minutes earlier from the most vivid dream I have ever had. Diana was standing at the foot of my bed, looking exactly as she did on our wedding day. She did not speak, but she pointed toward Emma's room with such urgency, such fear in her eyes. I woke up with my heart pounding. My first instinct was to check on Emma, but then I told myself I was being ridiculous, that it was just a dream. I laid back down, trying to go back to sleep. That is when you called. Robert wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. If I had trusted that dream, if I had checked on Emma when Diana warned me, maybe I could have stopped Victoria before she took our daughter. I have been carrying that guilt for months now. You cannot blame yourself, Marcus said firmly. You did not know. None of us knew how far Victoria would go. But in the end, Emma is safe. Diana made sure of that, one way or another. They sat together in companionable silence for a while. 2 men who had lived through the impossible and come out changed on the other side. Finally, Robert spoke again. We are selling the estate. Emma and I cannot stay here anymore. Too many memories. Too much pain. We are moving to the coast, starting fresh. I wanted you to know that your position here will end when we sell. But I am writing you a letter of recommendation that will open doors anywhere you want to work. You deserve that much. Marcus nodded, understanding. Thank you, sir. I think a fresh start will be good for all of us. As Marcus left the study that night, he walked one last time through the east wing hallway to Diana's bedroom. The door was open now, the room being packed up by professional movers. All of Diana's belongings were being sorted, some going to charity, some being saved for Emma when she was older. The room looked empty and sad, stripped of the personality that had once filled it. Marcus stood in the doorway, remembering those 2 strange nights. The light, the shadow, the humming, the impossible tea. He thought about the voice that had spoken his name, guiding him to the diary that saved Emma's life. He would never fully understand what had happened here, but he had made his peace with the mystery. Thank you, he whispered to the empty room. Thank you for trusting me to protect them. A soft breeze moved through the room, though no windows were open. The curtains swayed gently, and for just a moment, Marcus caught the faint scent of chamomile tea. He smiled, knowing in his heart that Diana had heard him. The trial came in early summer. Victoria Ashford pleaded guilty to all charges, sparing Emma the trauma of having to testify. In her statement to the court, Victoria spoke about her gambling addiction, her jealousy of Diana, and the twisted logic that had convinced her murder was justified. She showed remorse, but it was too late. The judge sentenced her to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Robert attended the sentencing with Emma. Wanting closure for both of them, when it was his turn to speak, he stood before the court and addressed Victoria directly. You took my wife from me? You took Emma's mother. You destroyed our family because of greed and jealousy. But despite everything you have done, I want you to know that I forgive you. Not because you deserve forgiveness, but because Diana would have wanted me to. She always believed in second chances, in redemption. Even after everything you put her through, she still hoped you would get help and find peace. Victoria broke down sobbing in the courtroom, the weight of her actions finally crushing her completely. As the guards led her away to begin her life sentence, she looked back at Emma one last time. The little girl, now 8 years old, held her father's hand tightly, but met her aunt's eyes with a strength beyond her years. Emma did not cry or show anger. She simply watched as the woman who had killed her mother was taken away forever. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed Robert and Emma, asking questions about the case, about Diana, about the strange circumstances of how the kidnapping plot was discovered. Robert politely declined to comment, shielding Emma from the cameras as they walked to their car. They had given enough to the public. The rest of their story was theirs to keep. Marcus watched the news coverage from his new apartment across town. He had taken a position as head of security at a hospital, a quieter job with regular hours and no overnight shifts. The Wellington case had drained something from him, and he needed time to recover. But he was grateful for the experience too, in a strange way. It had opened his eyes to possibilities he had never considered before, to the idea that the world was more mysterious and beautiful than he had ever imagined.